Alright guys, I gotta make the video, man. I gotta make the video. So for those of you guys who don't know, I used to be in a cult a long time ago. Okay. I now since left the cult. I was actually like one of the leaders in the cult. Like I led up my own church and everything. And I left the cult. Now I'm helping deprogram people. Okay. I'm helping people kind of get their lives back. Right now I'm doing this series where I'm deconstructing what's called the First Principles. This is the Bible study series that my cult made everybody go through twice in their first year to be a member of the church. And so right now I'm breaking down the mind control tactics that we used when we were in the cult, right? Through this study. But in my first video, my introduction video, I talked about how, hey, your belief in Jesus primes you for to be in a cult, right? Your belief in Jesus. And one of the things I said was that the reason why your belief in Jesus primes you to be in a cult is because both authoritarian cults and religion, particularly Christianity, requires you to believe things without evidence or critical thinking, or critically thinking about what you believe. So last night I went on live, and the head guy from the cult, he used to be like my handler when I was in the cult. And you know, he was the reason I left, because when I was in the cult, like I really wanted to be like Jesus. Like I really wanted to be an evangelist. And when he started mentoring me and handling me, and I just went like, yo, this guy's just making stuff up, and he's the top guy. And it didn't logically follow that if this is how the top guy was doing it, that, you know, anything would be anything else. It would be different anywhere else. So I was just like, yo, this isn't what we say it is. So I left, right? And so I was breaking down his sermon, and it's so funny being out now because I went verse by verse of his sermon last week, and I said, guys, not a single scripture here that what he's teaching, not a single scripture here applies to is saying what he's saying that it said. And I read every scripture, and I showed, and everybody could see, like you could read it yourself. You could listen to his sermon, and then you could read the scripture as you're listening to his sermon, listen to what he's saying that this scripture's teaching, and it's not teaching that. And I made the point of like, the reason why I don't respect these people is because these other people in that room who listen to that sermon, these are church leaders. These are other church leaders. These are people who watch over people, who teach people and preach to people, and they don't have the guts to stand up to him and says, dude, you are teaching out of context right now. It's like, I'm not interested in what those guys believe about Jesus, God, salvation, or anything, because I can read the Bible and say and see that this guy is like, he's making stuff up as he goes. And it's crazy because it's like, why do people sit in that? Why was I in that? Why do people, like, this is what religion does. Like every Sunday some pastor is cherry picking a scripture, coming up with some, you know, catchy, cool phrase to make it stick in your head, to make it rhyme, and a nice cadence and delivery and tone so it sticks. But it's like, fam, all of them making shit up, and nobody is in the churches going like, man, like they just making this shit up. And I'm gonna tell you why. And it goes back to what I said, like both Christianity and cults require you to believe some crazy things without any evidence or thinking critically about it. The basis of Christianity is that a father murdered his son as a sacrifice to himself so that he could forgive you for the sin that you committed, so that he won't have to punish you for all eternity. Like, in order to be a Christian, you have to believe that it's okay for a father to murder his son, so as long as it's God or God tells him to do it. Like, that's nuts, bro. That's nuts if you think about it. Like, God is a child abuser. Like there's, and he did it so that he could forgive you for, like, looking at titties. Like, that's why he murdered his son. He murdered his one, like, and it's flipped in such a way to make it sound like it's like this sweet love story between God and you. And it's like, wait, but like, you could, like, just, like, forgive me, bro. Like, right? Aren't you, like, benevolent? Like, can you just, like, why did you have to murder your son? Like, you didn't have to do that. But that was that was unnecessary. Like, what, like, why are you getting mad that I enjoy the world that you put me in? Right? Like, it's like, fam, to be a Christian, you have to believe that God wanting to murder his son as a sacrifice to himself is, like, okay. It's perfectly fine. That's what you have to come in the door believing. And so when all these pastors, preach, talk about, they preach false doctrine and they try to call other people out for preaching false doctrine, it's like, guys, you kind of got to let the Christians, like, fight amongst themselves, because it's like, fam, you're talking to a group of people who they're okay with a father murdering their son. Like, they're perfectly okay with a man killing his son. They are perfectly okay with rape, murder, as long as God said do it. Like, have you guys not noticed, like, when we say people have a God complex, it just means that the rules don't apply to them? And have you guys noticed that, like, when it comes to God, none of his own rules apply to him? Like, that's literally what it means to be God. What it means to be God is that the rules don't apply to you. So if you murder your son, it was the greatest act of love ever. But if, like, I murdered my daughter or my son, it's like, how could you do that? How could a parent even do that? I mean, well, the creator of the universe did it. What do you mean? Like, I'm created in his image. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, when we talk about God complexes, we are talking about people who are outside the rules, who are outside the moral structure. Right? Like, this is why when people go, how do you have a moral system without God? How do you have a moral system with God? God is above the morals. Murdering your son is seen as an act of love and grace. Like, it's crazy, because it's like, even as a kid, I was like, bro, like, even as a child, I remember going, like in the pit, like, deep down, going, like, that doesn't feel loving. Like, I was 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever how old I was, but I remember first hearing the story of Jesus and about how he died for my sins, and I was like, but I don't know him. Like, I remember as a child going, but I don't know him. Why did he die? Like, that doesn't make sense. Right? And then as you learn the story, you're like, oh, God sent his only begotten son into the world. Right? It's like, wait a second. So God, you set this up? Like, this was your grand plan to save everybody was to murder your son, and I have to see that as an act of love, grace, and mercy? But no, I would not see that as an act of love, grace, and mercy for nobody else. Nobody else would think that would be but this is so, when you are dealing with people who already believe that murdering your son is an act of love, grace, and mercy, we can't talk morals with these people, because they don't live in a world where they have to hold a consistent moral structure or consistent moral framework, right? God is the excuse to be outside of the moral framework, if you think about it. When a group of people, or when people, like, really, really believe in God, they will behave outside of the regular moral framework that we all sort of live with. You know what I'm saying? It's like, people kill other people in the name of God. People attack nations. People rape and pillage villages in the name of God. Like, God is actually not the source of morality. God is the excuse for every immoral act ever. Holy shit, did I just, what the fuck? Wait a second. Yo, hold on. I just mind fucked myself. Wait a second. If you look at it, if you take God too seriously, you will always end up using God as an excuse for the most immoral and unjust behavior. Like, I was just listening to that sermon, and in that sermon he was talking about how the head guy got kicked out of the church because he was taking pictures of the people's wives in the church and then going and putting their heads on like porn stars and like beating his meat to it, right? And so everybody found out about it, so he was put out of the church. That amongst a lot of fucked up weird shit that he did. And so now they're trying to bring him back into the church, right? They had this whole split. This stupid Christian shit. Well, fake Christian shit, because none of these guys are Christians. But they're trying to bring the guy back in the church, and in that sermon he was talking about, hey man, if God can forgive Paul, and if you don't know who Paul is, Paul wrote most of the New Testament, but before he became a Christian, he like murdered Christians. And so he goes, if God could forgive Paul for murdering Christians, you could forgive this guy for beating his dick to your wife. He doesn't say that, but that's what he's asking you to do. He's asking you and telling you, hey, you need to forgive this guy. And it's like, fam, every time a person invokes the name of God, it's because they're trying to subjugate somebody else. They're trying to force somebody else to do something. That's the only time people call on the name of God, is when you want to force something your way. Like, I just, maybe it just hit me right now. But like, yeah, I think God might, in fact, the idea of God, because the idea of God is so counter to reality itself, right? Reality isn't benevolent. Most of the universe we can't fuck with, right? I think the separation does not equal love. Like, it's like there's too much separation in this physical reality for there to be love. I think we envision love, but I think I understand what we're trying to get to with God, but when you look at how we practically use God, he doesn't work in our reality because we're trying to force God to be everything that isn't reality, right? Reality is not benevolent. It's not all loving. It's not like, there's suffering happening right now. Some kid is being raped right now, bro. Like, and God isn't doing shit about it. like come on, dog. Like, what are we? Like, God is what people use, and when you think about the God complex, when a person has a God complex, every time God is invoked, it's for some fucked up shit. It's to justify fucked up shit. That's crazy. I didn't even mean to go that far, but I did. All right, love y'all. Peace.